Why me? Why now? I've been asked that by a couple of people. Um, Most people don't even know that I'm doing this yet. But my wife asked me just the other day before I recorded my very first episode, why are you doing this exactly? What's the podcast about? I I didn't really have an answer. And I think maybe I do now. So my handle is creator with a day job. Well, today is the first day in over 15 years that I do not have that day job. So I technically am a creator without a day job. That's weird. That's actually really weird for me to say out loud. Um yeah, it's odd because my previous role was in innovation, and my job was to build new things that looked forward, things that kind of pushed what we were doing. I became a foundational programmer. I worked in this company for nearly a decade. I built products that are still standing, that face customers, face internal systems, integrate complex systems together in a simple way. And I grew teams, I saw them grow, shrink, and I always found a way to find a new opportunity. The really ironic thing, I think, is whenever I would speak at universities or anyone in general, and definitely when I'm doing mentoring with people one on one, is I have a very simple philosophy: make yourself redundant. Always aim to make yourself redundant. And the goal there is that you're not building or doing the same thing day in and day out years on end. If you work for a good organization and you show value and you automate your job or you make your project complete, they will find something new for you to do. And that was my career. I started off working in hardware electronics, building cameras. And then that kind of part of my job went defunct and I got moved to another division. And in there, I built mobile apps and websites and then integration platforms to talk to complex systems. And then after a while, I got bored of that. And then I found an opportunity to get into data analytics and forecasting and using AI modeling to look into the future. It was fascinating. So I was always making myself redundant. And that always worked for me until it didn't. Because as of today, I made myself redundant and nothing new opened up. So now I'm here. And had I realized that I'd be in this situation now, I don't know if I'd have the answer as to what was next. I think you asked me any point in time, I'd probably have something. But right now, I actually don't know what I want to do next. But I do know what I am. I am a builder. I am a creator. That's it. I make things. That's all I do. And for the last 10 years at my previous company, everything I built there is still there. Hundreds of thousands of lines of codes, multiple systems, foundation stuff. Other people have taken it and built on top of it and done amazing things with it. And the hard thing is, I never owned any of it. It was just my job. But there was all these other things, these little projects I chipped away at after hours. I'd be up, 1 a.m. programming on a video game or working on a new video. And these things I never really spoke about. For 20 years, I've been building video games by myself. I think I currently have maybe 12 apps in the App Store. A lot of them are old and I haven't looked after them, but I have a few that are still quite active. I do that all by myself. And it's funny because I never shared that with people. I never talked about it in my job, and it was actually hidden on my CV way at the bottom. I wouldn't even really put it on my resume. Just kind of said, oh yeah, I dabble in this. But I always felt no one would take it seriously until the moment someone did. So something very small happened, and it was several months ago that I was told that my role was looking to be disestablished, yada, yada, yada. And within a couple days, there's a funny timeline. Within a couple days after that event is when I found out I had aphantasia. And then a couple days after I found out I had aphantasia, I got a call from a recruiter. So it was very serendipitous because I wasn't looking yet. They just called me, and it started off with them reaching out to me on the professional websites. And they said, oh, you're a creator with a day job. And that is the tagline I would use on my profile. I said, oh yeah, and they said, oh, we want to talk a bit, and I like to get to know more about you. So I was speaking with her, and it went well over an hour. I felt like it was a really great conversation. And then near the end, or in the middle even, she just asked me something no one has ever asked me. And she said, tell me about your games. And in that moment, I realized I've been hiding this thing that matters more to me than anything else, afraid to talk about it because I think I said it was a hobby. Therefore, there was no point in anyone ever taking it seriously. And that is absolute BS. The hobby is what defines me. The fact I create stuff. The only reason I was ever able to build anything for any of the companies I do is because I make games. That's how I taught myself to program. That's how I taught myself all my skills. And that's what kept me excited to program and learn new things and push my boundaries. That's how I made sure I was making myself redundant and forcing myself to learn something new. So with that and the discovery about the aphantasia, I actually did make it to the second round of the interviews. And the first interview I had was to Whiteboard. I'm like, fantastic. This is how I think. I think amazingly on my feet. It's give me information, problems. I'll go and I'll walk it out, and I will be able to whiteboard it as I think. I think in motion because I can't sit back and close my eyes and visualize stuff. So thinking in motion works. I could stare at things, Lego pieces, and kind of figure out where they go. I won't visualize what it is, but I have an idea of what can be built from there. So it's almost like a visualization, just there's no actual picture. Think of it maybe like instructions. So I had this interview, whiteboard problem. I was going to nail this, but things kind of fell apart. First part, the interviewer didn't even show up. So they rescheduled it for a few hours later the same day. Some other interviewer came in, didn't even know the job I was applying for. I had to explain. We did the whiteboard interview, and I had built a whiteboard just for this interview behind me so I could turn around and write on it. And the interviewer is like, oh, I can't see it. I can't see it. Oh, can you please do this on the computer? I can't see it. And I was trying to explain, let me just do it this way first, and then I will transition to the computer. And they kind of were just complaining all the way through. So finally I'm like, fine, let me move to the computer. And I wasn't able to get my thoughts out. I stumbled, I slowed down. I was now being forced to use a workflow that doesn't work for me. And the irony is, this was a whiteboard challenge and they told me not to use whiteboards. So I walked away from that just going, yeah, no, that didn't work. Moving on. I don't want to force myself into these environments that don't fit or understand the way I work. Um, and that was a really key factor. I had a second part of that interview. I did very well, but at that point, it was really disheartening because I knew I was very qualified for the role, but you know, this must happen to everybody. And this was a company that sounded great on paper. And I even know someone who works there and they talked very highly of it. So it was a bit of a bummer. I thought at the moment, I'm like, oh, maybe this is very serendipitous because it happened right at the perfect time when I had been told I lost my job. So I stopped. This was early December. So I just stopped. I just stopped looking. Christmas hit. The job market freezes around Christmas. And then for the first time in a really long time, I just focused on me. And I focused on my family. And I said, what is it I want to do? Because I had a couple months that my company was going to do as a transition period before I left. So what can I do? Boy, the Christmas was amazing. I spent every day almost with my kids. We went on adventures. We went fishing. We did all types of amazing stuff. Cooked a lot. I built a pizza oven a couple years ago. We made a lot of pizza. And I started working on my games. I went back to my game and said, you know what? This trickles income, but it's not anything that will pay my bills, but it's something I love doing. And I've kind of neglected it. So I sat down and said, let's focus on this. And I used some tools I built as well as, using AI as kind of a coach to keep me on track. And we came up with a plan and I started building it and I loved it. I was releasing on time every week. I'd be like, oh, here's a big feature and put it out. Let me test it and see how it does. And I loved every minute of it. I even opted and became a hockey coach, inline hockey coach. My son plays, and this is his second year, and I offered to be a coach for the beginners. And initially they said, no, we'd prefer the players to coach. I said, all right, that's fine. And we went to the first practice and guess what? There's no coach. And when the parents came up to me and said how disappointed they were, and I told her, don't worry about it. This won't happen again. I went to the president and said, no coaches showed up. I offered, I'm going to be the coach now. And they couldn't really say anything at the time. And I just started coaching. I love it. Absolutely love it. These are kids who have either just started their journey into hockey or have never played before. It's a very small ragtag group, but I'm hoping to grow it. I absolutely adore it. I want kids to love the sport. And they'll get the skills in the later leagues with the excellent coaches we have at the junior and senior levels. But my goal is to bring in newcomers and get them to love it. It's the same idea with programming. I meet people when I mentor them who are programmers, but they don't love it. And I want them to love it. We have the ability to make things that weren't there just by typing on a keyboard. It's the coolest skill ever. So I was making progress. I was making a lot of progress in my personal life, and I was so happy. But things happen. There's one thing I didn't really think too much about when I was really busy. When the kids went back to school this year, and I was pretty much remote working at this stage because I'd been laid off. I was just doing handovers. There's something I didn't really think about until then, and it's how small your world gets as you get older and how you lose the proximity of the people you know and love over time. Your friends move away, lives change, families grow, and suddenly you just don't have any peers anymore. Not people who think like you, not people you could just sit down with, have a drink, and just talk about stuff, usually technology stuff for this, or just anything. It's like that best friend you had when you were a kid. And I still talk to my best friend. Sad thing is, we live on two opposite sides of the planet because 18 years ago, I moved across the planet and I left all the people in family behind. My wife and I moved out here together. So obviously I brought some family, and we started a family and we have a family here. But if you know what I mean, my friends from my childhood, I don't see anymore unless I visit or Zoom call. So I struggle. I have people in my life. I have one really good friend. I have people I worked with who we became close, but I don't have that person that I could just willy-nilly call or talk about on this level of, hey, let's talk a little bit about fishing as well as database design and check out this game I'm working on. That doesn't exist for me. And I crave it. So that brings me to the answer. Why this? Why now? I don't think this podcast is going to be any type of moneymaker or, big explosion of views or anything. To put my wife's, nerves at ease, I will get a job to pay the bills. I just dread having to do that if it's something I don't like. Hopefully it is something I like going forward, but that's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I want to capture this. I am fully aware of how my memory works and how it doesn't work. And I want something I can come back to. Something that, if I'm honest, is just, this is who I am at this point in my life. And how amazing would it be if I happened to connect with even one other person, even if it's just one person who hears or sees this and goes, wow, yeah, that's me. And I kind of know that because I've watched other podcasts and stuff or listened to them and go, wow, that resonates with me, even though who am I prior to me listening to this podcast or watching this YouTube? Who were they? So why me? There's nothing special about me. I'm just a guy who builds things. I'm a guy who loves to build things and watch hockey and coach hockey and fish and cook. The first time in a long time, I actually had the space to actually ask and think about what comes next. Because when you're just working a job for 10 years or been in the same industry for 20 some years, and then you're out, you have that moment. You have that opportunity to be like, okay, what am I going to do next? So I don't know what that is. All I do know is I love building. I love mentoring, and I'm not going to into an environment that kills that. Not again. I am going to go into something that rewards me. Yeah. My name is Michael. I am a creator without a day job, and that's okay. If you like any of this, subscribe, like,